Here's a question I received, and might not be able to provide that much help. Remember, I'm not an engineer. The information I'm sharing with you in the videos and might be something I've done in the past. If so, I will state that. If not, I will state or try to state that it hasn't been something and would be just a suggestion. So with that, here's what happened. Someone was doing a remodel, and the plumber ended up drilling a hole through the bottom of the joist, and I would imagine it didn't work with the fittings they were going to use, and ended up drilling another hole in the top, butchering the joist. And this is a bummer. And I've ran into situations like this. I feel for the plumber, ain't no doubt about it, and feel even more pain for the homeowner, whoever needs to pay for the repair, of course. So the first thing I would suggest would be doubling up the joist, installing a new joist. This would be something that you really wouldn't need an engineer for. I would imagine you wouldn't need an engineer for, because you're bringing it back to the original condition. You're basically adding another joist, and I would imagine this would make the floor even stronger. And with this method here, you would need to relocate the pipe. If that's not an option, you can't run it in another area. And I'm going to try and do a video on that also. I'll try and put a link in here. I know I say I'm going to put links into some of these, and sometimes I don't. Leave a comment in the comment area if you need the information. I will make a video as soon as I can and put the link in if it doesn't happen. So anyway, this right here is my best suggestion. This right here is actually something that I did for a job that I did. I actually cut a notch in the center area. You are not allowed to notch in the center of the joist. And I actually cut a notch and ran a gas pipe right down the middle. And the joist, I believe, were 20 foot. They might have been 22 feet, 2x12s. And the fix was to install, I believe, a 10 foot or a 12 foot 2x6 and center it in over the notch, and then just stagger nail 16 inches on center with 16D nails. And this was actually something that was a fix by an engineer, and that's why I'm throwing it out there. I'm not saying that this is going to work because, as I said, mine was in the center. Yours is on the side. The problem is, and of course, we're dealing with larger holes. I was only dealing with about a 1 inch notch, not two over 2 inch holes. So here's another idea. This is just something I thought might work. If you're not going to remove the joist, you're not going to double them up. This might provide you with some additional support, and this would just be attaching plywood. Which way you would run the grain of plywood, I'll leave that up to you. Most of the, or I should say all of the TJI truss joists, the grain runs vertical. It does not run horizontal. So you might actually want to run the grain horizontal for something like this. And then just use some bolts, bolt the pieces together. You could always stagger the bolts too. It's real common for an engineer to have two at the end, and then one 16 inches on center, and then maybe one 8 inches on center. And then you would go 16 inches from there, so that the bolts, after you got away from the end, would stagger like this. But they would be 16 inches apart on the top. And I believe I have a video on that. Check out the engineering section at the website, or the framing section, or even the framing repair section for that. And if you need a link for that, I'll try and put one in here, but let me know. And this was just another one. This was actually the first drawing I did, thinking that, just cut some scrap pieces of plywood and bolt them together. That might work. But all of these repairs require you to remove the pipe. I think you're going to need the extra support that's going to come at the top here. And if you just take and notch it, I don't think that's going to work real good. That's almost like if you notch this around the pipe, why bother putting the rest of this in here? This is pretty much the strength. If I was just to draw a straight line across here, let's just say that the notch is 3 inches, the joists are 9.5 inches. That's going to give me with a 6.5 inch, leave me with a 6.5 inch board. This is almost just like, why not just put a 6.5 inch board through here? I don't think you're going to get that much strength out of it doing it like this. This would probably be the optimal repair for something like this. And again, you would need to take the pipe apart. And you're probably thinking, well, how am I going to get the pipe in there? Well, I've seen it plenty of times. A plumber will just put a coupling wherever they need to. If it's in every single bay, they'll put a coupling in every bay, and you can always use rubber couplings. And if it's a drain, then you might want to make sure you glue it together. And if it's a vent, then the rubber couplings might work fine. I mean, I know that the rubber couplings do their job, but it's not uncommon for them to leak, and that would be a pain in the butt. But again, if you have a drywalled ceiling, this is always something you'd be able to get to. Now, one more thing I'd like to point out, and this is specifically to the individual who emailed me. They were remodeling a bathroom, and he mentioned a bathtub. If you are going to put a bathtub in this area, then you might need to double up the joist. You might need to just get rid of this. You might need to relocate the vent and double up the joist, because this is, and depending upon the size of the bathtub, if you're going to put a big jacuzzi bathtub in here, then I am definitely telling you that, this is going to be a lot of water and a lot of weight. And I'd make sure that you take and pull this pipe out and double up the rafters if you're going to do something like that. And but if you're not, maybe you're going to put a Japanese bathtub in there, maybe that's only 2 feet by 2 feet, maybe you won't have a problem. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on this one. And like I said, I am not a structural engineer. You could always bring it back to original condition like this, I would imagine, without contacting a structural engineer. But other than that, an engineer might be able to provide you with a fix that will work. Now, I got to mention one more thing here. This repair that I did here on my project, it was in the center, and it actually caused the floor joist to sag. And that wasn't good. So some of these fixes that the engineers come up with might look good on paper, and I've said this before, but don't always provide you with the best solution. So keep that in mind also.